The metal corridors of Outpost 7 were usually quiet at this hour. Only the soft hum of power lines and the slow breathing of machines filled the space. But tonight, something else moved through the air. A strange tension, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Far away from the command room, a young human child named Lyra sat near a storage crate, playing with a small wooden figure shaped like a bird. She was only 8 years old, but she had learned to live with silence, danger, and shadows. The galaxy was not kind to children, especially human children. They were rare now, and some species hunted them for reasons Lyra did not understand. She looked up when she heard a faint scratching on the floor. It was her companion, a honey badger the crew had named Brunt. He was large, strong, and smarter than most people thought. His gold eyes glowed faintly under the dim corridor lights. He nudged her hand with his nose as if telling her to stay close. Lyra smiled softly and touched his head. "It's okay, Brunt. I'm not going anywhere." But Brunt's fur rose slightly. He sensed something wrong. In another part of the station, Captain Marin studied the security screens with a deep frown. The sensors showed small dark shapes breaking through the outer shields. They were fast, cold, and silent. Not meteors, not drones, something alive, something dangerous. He contacted the guards immediately. "We have incoming units, unknown identity. Lock down the halls, protect the child at all costs." Every soldier on the outpost understood. Lyra was not just a child, she was a symbol of hope. If the hunters took her, humanity would lose more than a life. They would lose a future. Deep in the ventilation shafts, the intruders moved like smoke. Their armor was smooth and black, absorbing light. Their masks hid their faces completely, but glowing green eyes peeked through the visor. They carried weapons that hummed with quiet power. They were known as the Vorn Trackers, cold, efficient, and loyal to the highest bidder, and someone had paid them well. Their mission was simple: capture the human child alive. Brunt felt the danger growing. He moved closer to Lyra, growling softly. She held his fur tightly, confused but trusting him. The lights above flickered. A low alarm began to echo through the outpost. Lyra's heartbeat quickened. She looked around. "Brunt, what's happening?" Brunt stepped in front of her, his body tense, his nose lifting to catch every scent in the air. Footsteps echoed in the hall, slow, careful, not like the friendly patrols she knew. These were quiet, controlled hunting steps. Captain Marin's voice reached her through the speakers. "Lyra, stay where you are. Guards are coming to you." But the guards did not reach her first. From the shadows at the far end of the corridor, 3 Vorn trackers emerged. Their weapons pointed directly at her. Their masks reflected the dim blue lights, giving them an emotionless appearance. Lyra froze in fear. One of them raised a hand, signaling the others to move slowly. "Target located," he said in a cold, metallic voice. Lyra stepped back instinctively, but Brunt moved forward, placing himself between her and the hunters. His golden eyes glowed brighter now, burning with something old and wild, something deadly. The lead tracker tilted his head. "Animal detected, remove it." Before any of them fired, Brunt attacked. He moved with shocking speed. His claws tore across the first tracker's armor, sending the hunter crashing into a wall. Sparks burst from his suit. The second tracker aimed a stun weapon at Brunt, but the honey badger ducked under the beam and slammed into the hunter's legs, breaking them instantly. The third tracker stepped back, raising an alarm. "Hostile creature, level 4 threat." Brunt roared, not like a normal beast, but like something built for war. His body almost seemed to absorb the energy blasts that hit him, his fur glowing from the heat. He lunged at the third tracker, ripping the weapon out of his hand and throwing him like a rag doll across the corridor. Lyra trembled as she watched. She had seen Brunt angry before, but never like this. He wasn't just defending her. He was destroying anything that tried to take her. More trackers rushed into the hallway, weapons ready. Brunt positioned himself firmly, claws scraping against the floor, ready for the next attack. Lyra pushed herself against the crate, trying to stay small and unseen. Her eyes darted around, searching for the guards Captain Marin had promised. But the outpost was big, and the trackers were moving much faster. The Vorn opened fire again. Bright streams of energy shot across the corridor, hitting Brunt's back and sides. He hissed with pain but did not fall. Instead, he charged straight through the beams, slamming into 2 hunters at once, smashing their helmets against the metal floor. The trackers began to panic. "This thing is not natural," one shouted. "He protects the child, it will not stop," another answered. Brunt's eyes glowed brighter as he turned to face the remaining hunters. His body seemed almost larger now, filled with a deep, unstoppable strength. He was the last line of defense, and he knew it. Lyra covered her ears as explosions and energy blasts filled the hallway. The smell of burnt metal and smoke drifted around her. Still, she did not run. She knew Brunt wanted her to stay behind him. One tracker attempted to bypass the battle and grab Lyra, but Brunt saw him instantly. With a deep growl, he leapt at the hunter, biting through the armor and throwing him across the room like broken machinery. The corridor lights flickered again, then stabilized. The alarms grew louder. When the smoke cleared, Brunt stood surrounded by fallen trackers. Some were unconscious, others badly injured, but not one of them had reached Lyra. Brunt breathed heavily, his fur standing up, glowing with the battle's heat. Lyra slowly stepped forward and touched his back. "You saved me again." Brunt lowered his head gently as if to reassure her, but the danger was not over. More footsteps approached, many more this time. The Vorn had not expected resistance, especially not from a creature like Brunt. Now they were coming in full force. Lyra looked at the dark hallway ahead, fear rising again. She wrapped her arms around Brunt's thick fur. Brunt growled, ready for the next wave. The war for the human child had only just begun. The loud alarms continued to ring across Outpost 7, sending sharp echoes through every hall. Red warning lights flashed against the metal walls, painting the corridor in sudden bursts of color. The air shook lightly with distant explosions as the outpost guards clashed with more incoming Vorn hunters. The entire station was waking up to a nightmare. Captain Marin rushed through the halls with a squad of soldiers behind him. Their footsteps hit the floor in fast, heavy rhythms. Every few seconds, Marin checked his wrist display, scanning for Lyra's position. Her signal flickered, then stabilized. She was still alive. That was enough to keep him sprinting forward. But even he could see something strange on the motion tracker. A large shape near her, a dangerous shape. Yet every tracker unit around her signal showed heavy damage. He did not understand what could fight so many at once. He soon would. Far ahead, Lyra stayed close to Brunt as the corridor filled with smoke drifting from damaged panels. The honey badger stood with legs wide, muscles tense, waiting for the next wave of intruders. His golden eyes glowed brighter than before, almost like burning lamps in the dim hallway. Lyra placed her small hand gently on his shoulder. "Brunt, will they stop?" He did not move, but his rumbling growl told her everything. The enemy was coming again, and they would not stop until they succeeded or died trying. A sudden metallic crash echoed from the left passage. Lyra gasped. Brunt turned sharply, teeth exposed. The Vorn hunters stepped into view, this time a much larger force. Their armor was thicker, and their weapons glowed with stronger power levels. Their leader carried a weapon shaped like a long spear, humming with dangerous energy. The leader pointed directly at Lyra. Target confirmed, capture alive, neutralize the creature. Two hunters fired stun blasts at Brunt. The beams hit his side, pushing him back slightly, but he stayed firmly on his feet. He shook his head, sparks falling from his fur. "Why does that beast not fall?" one hunter shouted. "Increase power," another demanded, but Brunt had already moved. He sprinted forward faster than the hunters expected, crashing into the front line. His claws ripped through armor, sparks bursting across the corridor. The hunters stumbled back, shouting and firing wildly. Lyra crouched low, covering her ears as explosions lit up the hallway again. Brunt's attacks were wild but calculated. He tore through armor plates, knocked weapons from hands, and slammed enemies into the walls. One hunter tried to swing the energy spear at him, but Brunt dodged left, grabbed the spear with his teeth, and snapped it in two with shocking force. The leader stumbled backward. "This creature is unnatural, retreat and regroup." But Brunt didn't let him escape. He leapt forward, pinning the leader to the ground. Sparks flashed as Brunt's claws tore across the hunter's armor. The leader dropped his remaining weapon, defeated. Lyra watched with awe and fear. She knew Brunt was strong, but this was more than strength. It felt like he was fueled by something deeper, something old and fierce, something that refused to let darkness touch her. But even Brunt had limits. As he fought the last of the group, a new blast struck his back, stronger than the others. He stumbled. Lyra gasped and rushed toward him, but he growled gently, warning her to stay away from danger. From the far end of the hallway, a towering Vorn bruiser entered. He was almost twice the size of the others, his armor thick like tank plating. He carried a heavy weapon glowing with violent red energy. "End the creature," the bruiser growled. He fired a massive blast directly at Brunt. The honey badger jumped aside, but the energy hit the floor, shaking the entire corridor and sending debris flying. Lyra shielded her face, coughing as dust and smoke filled the air. Brunt charged the bruiser, but the large hunter swung a metal arm, hitting Brunt with enough force to slam him into the wall. The impact shook the panels loose. "Brunt!" Lyra cried. He rose again, though slower this time. His glowing eyes narrowed as he faced the armored giant. The bruiser aimed his heavy weapon again. "Fall!" But before he could fire, someone else entered the scene. Captain Marin and his soldiers arrived at full speed, blasters raised. Fire! A wave of blue bolts shot through the air, striking the bruiser's armor. The giant staggered but did not fall. He turned toward the soldiers, roaring with anger. Brunt used that moment. He leapt onto the bruiser's back, digging his claws into weak joints between armor plates. The bruiser howled, swinging wildly, trying to shake him off. Marin shouted again, "Focus fire on his legs." The soldiers obeyed, aiming at the exposed joints. The bruiser fell to one knee. Brunt clawed deeper until sparks poured from the armor. With one last powerful bite, he tore free the bruiser's power core. The giant collapsed with a heavy crash. Silence filled the corridor for a moment. Lyra ran straight to Brunt and wrapped her arms around him. He lowered his head, exhausted but alive. Captain Marin approached slowly, stunned by what he had witnessed. "That thing protected you?" Lyra nodded. "He always does." Brunt looked at Marin with sharp eyes, not trusting him fully. Marin knelt down. "Brunt, thank you, you saved her." The honey badger blinked once but did not relax. The danger still surrounded them. Suddenly Marin's wrist display beeped urgently. He checked it and his face darkened. "This is worse than we thought. There are more Vorn ships landing outside. They are cutting through the hull. We cannot hold this place much longer." A soldier stepped forward. "Captain, what are your orders?" Marin looked at Lyra, then at Brunt. He could see fear in the girl's eyes, but also strength. She trusted the creature beside her more than anything else. "We need to move to the safe chamber," Marin said. "It is the most secure place left." "But the Vorn are everywhere," the soldier warned. "They won't stop," Marin replied. "They will keep coming for her." Lyra felt her chest tighten. "Why me?" Marin hesitated. "Because you are human, and because humans are not supposed to exist anymore in this part of the galaxy." Brunt growled at the truth, as if he already understood long before the humans did. The soldiers formed a protective circle. Brunt positioned himself next to Lyra, ready for anything. Together, they began moving through the corridor. The alarms kept ringing, lights flickered, the floors trembled, and deeper in the outpost, the Vorn hunters advanced again. The real battle had only just begun. The journey through the outpost became harder with every step. The corridors that once felt safe now looked like long metal tunnels filled with shadows and danger. The glowing red emergency lights flashed again and again, making everything feel unstable and frightening. But Lyra walked forward, holding the straps of her small vest tightly. Brunt stayed close beside her, moving like a silent guardian. Captain Marin led the group. His eyes kept jumping from one corner to another, scanning every doorway, every vent, every dark patch. He could hear distant footsteps and metallic clicks. The Vorn hunters were spreading through the outpost like a dark flood. "We must reach the safe chamber before they cut us off," Marin said quietly to his soldiers. One of them, a young guard named Ron, glanced back at Lyra. "She's scared." "She has every right to be," Marin answered. "But she is also stronger than many adults I know." Lyra did not hear them. Her focus was on the strange trembling of the floor beneath her feet. Something deeper inside the station was moving, something big. As they turned a corner, Brunt stopped suddenly. His fur rose. His golden eyes narrowed into thin burning lines. He sniffed the air, then growled low. Marin raised a hand. "Everyone hold." The soldiers formed a defensive line, blasters up. The hallway ahead was silent, but Brunt never reacted without reason. His instincts were sharper than any scanner. A faint scraping sound came from the ceiling vents. Ron whispered, "They're above us." Before Marin could respond, 3 Vorn trackers dropped from the ceiling like dark spiders, landing silently behind the group. Their glowing green eyes reflected the red emergency light. Lyra gasped and stepped back, bumping into Brunt. He turned at once, positioning himself between her and the attackers. "Targets locked," one tracker said in a cold, mechanical voice. The soldiers fired quickly, blue blasts filling the hallway. But the trackers were fast, rolling to the sides and dodging the shots. One tracker fired a stun beam that shattered a wall panel, sending sparks flying across the floor. Brunt lunged at the closest tracker. His claws ripped through the hunter's chest armor. The tracker fell backward, struggling to rise. But Brunt was already on the next one, moving like a storm of fur and rage. Marin shouted, "Ron, protect the child." Ron stood beside Lyra, firing at a tracker that tried to circle around. The blast hit the hunter's leg, making him stumble. Brunt took the chance, slamming into the tracker and throwing him into a broken control panel. The last tracker hissed in frustration. Reinforcements inbound, prepare for full capture. He lifted a small device from his belt and pressed it. A sharp, vibrating pulse filled the air. Lyra covered her ears. Brunt roared in pain, shaking his head. His eyes flickered for a moment, the golden glow trembling. "They're using a disruptor," Marin shouted. "It's meant for creatures. Someone get that thing?" Ron ran forward, sliding across the floor. He tackled the tracker and grabbed the device. With quick force, he smashed it against the wall. The vibration stopped instantly. Brunt steadied himself, blinking as the pain faded. The tracker tried to escape, but Brunt caught him by the leg and tossed him easily across the corridor. Silence fell again. Marin knelt beside Brunt, checking his condition. "You all right, old warrior?" Brunt growled softly but stood strong. His eyes were bright again. Lyra touched his back gently. "Thank you." Brunt lowered his head in response. Marin stood and looked ahead. "They know where we are now. We must move faster." The group continued through the outpost, stepping around fallen panels and flickering lights. The air smelled like smoke and burning circuits. Moments passed, but the tension never left. As they reached a section of the station where the lights still worked, Lyra noticed something strange. The walls were shaking, not from explosions, but from something moving inside the structure. Marin's eyes widened as he read his wrist display again. "They're drilling into the outpost from outside. They want another entry point." A soldier asked, "Then where do we go?" "We reach the safe chamber before they break through," Marin answered. "It is the only room with reinforced shielding." Suddenly, automatic doors ahead opened with a loud hiss. Inside stood two station engineers, frightened and confused. "Captain, there are hunters trying to bypass the main lock." One of them shouted. "Help us reinforce the door," the other cried. The soldiers rushed inside to help. Brunt pushed Lyra gently into the room, then stood at the entrance like a stone wall. The engineers were trying to weld metal plates over the inner doors, but they were shaking too much to work quickly. "Calm down," Marin ordered. "Focus, we hold them off together." Outside the room, metallic banging echoed. The Vorn were trying to force the outer door open. Lyra clung to Brunt tightly. "Brunt, will they come in?" Brunt's eyes glowed and he stared at the door with a deep rumble. He would not allow anyone to touch her. The banging turned into loud pounding. The metal began to dent inward. One engineer dropped his tool in panic. "They're breaking through. We cannot stop them." "Keep working," Marin shouted. "Buy time." But time was slipping fast. A massive impact shook the entire room. The door bent almost in half. Sparks burst out. The Vorn were seconds away from tearing it open. Ron stepped beside Brunt, holding his blaster tight. "If they want the girl, they'll have to get through us." The metal finally tore open with a deafening scream. The outer door ripped aside, and a squad of elite Vorn hunters stormed inside. Their armor was heavier, their weapons stronger, and their movements cold and perfect. The leader pointed at Lyra. "We take the child now?" Brunt roared louder than ever before. He charged into the elite squad with unbelievable force, smashing into two hunters at once. The soldiers fired, filling the room with bright blue bolts. The air turned hot with energy. Explosions cracked against the walls. Engineers ducked behind crates. Smoke began to fill the chamber. Marin yelled, "Hold the line!" The elite hunters pushed forward anyway. Brunt clawed through one, flipped another, then blocked a shot meant for Lyra with his own body. He did not fall, he fought harder, but the Vorn were many, and they were still coming. The safe chamber was no longer safe, and deeper within the outpost something even worse had awakened. The safe chamber felt smaller and smaller as the battle grew louder. Smoke drifted through the air, mixing with the sharp scent of burning metal. The bright flashes of energy blasts lit the room again and again, making everything look like a broken, chaotic storm. Lyra covered her ears as the noise echoed inside her head. Brunt stood in front of her, his body like a living shield, strong and unshaken even as the enemy surrounded them. Captain Marin moved between crates and broken panels, firing at any Vorn hunter who stepped inside the chamber. His soldiers fought beside him, shouting commands, reloading weapons fast, and trying to hold their ground. But the Vorn were stronger in this wave. Their armor was reinforced. Their weapons crackled with angry red energy. They were not here to scare anyone, they were here to take the child. Ron ducked behind a metal container as a blast passed over his head. "Captain, we can't hold them. We need another plan." Marin fired a burst and struck a hunter's chest plate. The armor cracked and the hunter collapsed. "We hold until we find a way out. We cannot let them near the girl." Lyra stared at Brunt, tears filling her eyes. "They won't stop. Why won't they stop?" Brunt turned his head slightly and nudged her hand. His eyes glowed with a gentle promise. He would not let anything take her, but even he was starting to feel the weight of the endless attack. His breathing grew deeper. His fur was marked with scorch lines. Still, he stood ready. A loud metallic crash hit the hallway outside the chamber. The sound was different, heavier, deeper, like something massive had slammed into the walls. Marin's heart tightened. "What now?" The soldiers paused for a moment, listening. Another crash followed, shaking dust from the ceiling. The engineers cowered behind a console. Ron whispered, "Is that more Vorn?" Marin checked his wrist display, but the signal flickered wildly. "I don't know. Something large is in the ventilation level." The chamber door suddenly exploded inward, blowing shards of metal across the floor. The soldiers shielded their faces. Brunt pushed Lyra back gently, keeping her behind him as debris rained down. Through the thick smoke walked a new kind of Vorn hunter. Taller, broader, covered in black plating that reflected the emergency lights. Its arms were long, ending in glowing claws. Its mask had no visible eyes, only a bright red line that pulsed like a heartbeat. Marin stepped back in horror. "That's not a normal Vorn, that's a prime hunter." Prime hunters were rare, created only for the most dangerous missions. They were almost unstoppable machines of flesh and metal. The prime hunter spoke with a deep, distorted voice. "Stand aside. The child is required." Brunt growled loudly, louder than before, as if every muscle in his body prepared for a final war. The prime hunter lifted its clawed arm. A bright red beam shot forward, hitting the wall near Marin and melting it instantly. "Open fire!" Marin shouted. The soldiers unleashed everything they had. The chamber filled with blue and red light as energy blasts collided, ricocheted, and burned through the air. The prime hunter moved through the storm like a dark shadow, its armor barely scratched. One soldier screamed as the prime hunter slammed him aside. Another soldier fired point-blank, but the beam only scratched the plating. The prime hunter grabbed him and threw him across the room. Lyra screamed as the prime approached. Brunt charged. The two collided with a thunderous impact. Sparks erupted. Brunt's claws struck the prime's armor, tearing thin scratches that glowed with heat. The prime grabbed Brunt by the neck and slammed him into the floor. Brunt's growl echoed through the chamber. "Brunt!" Lyra cried. Brunt twisted, escaping the prime's grip, and bit into its arm. The prime swung its other arm, smashing Brunt into a crate. The crate broke in half from the force. Marin fired again at the prime, trying to distract it. "Come on, over here." The prime turned, analyzing him. "Captain Marin, you are irrelevant." It fired a red blast. Marin dove behind a console, but the energy melted through it quickly. He barely rolled away in time. Brunt attacked again, grabbing the prime's leg with unbelievable strength. The prime stumbled for the first time. The soldiers fired together, aiming at the damaged spot. The prime staggered. Its mask flickered, but it did not fall. Instead, it pushed Brunt away with a shocking burst of energy. Brunt slid. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, dark, and filled with the smell of dust and old metal. The group moved quickly, their footsteps echoing sharply in the confined space. The tunnel lights flickered weakly, showing only parts of their path before fading again. Lyra held Brunt tightly as they walked. His breathing was rough and his fur was scorched in several places, but he stayed close beside her, refusing to fall behind. Ron tried to calm her. "He's strong. He'll be okay." But Lyra could see the truth in Brunt's eyes. He was tired, his body was hurt, and yet he still walked forward with the same fierce spirit as before. She touched his head gently. "We'll be safe soon, right?" Captain Marin moved at the front of the group, shining a small flashlight into the tunnel. His face was tense, his eyes narrowed. He listened carefully to every sound behind them. The metal above their heads shook with distant impacts. The Vorn were searching. They wanted Lyra and they would not stop. One engineer whispered, "Captain, will the prime hunter follow us?" "He will try," Marin answered softly. "But this tunnel leads to the lower reactor. We can reroute power and block access behind us." Ron frowned. "Block it or blow it." Marin paused. "If we must both." Lyra hugged herself at the thought. She knew they were fighting for their lives, but the idea of destroying parts of the outpost made her chest tighten. This place was her home, even if it was small and old. The tunnel suddenly split into two paths. Marin studied his wrist display. Left leads to the reactor floor, right leads to the old cargo vault. He thought for a moment. The cargo vault is too open. We go left. They turned into the left tunnel, moving faster now. Sparks fell from the ceiling as distant parts of the outpost continued to shake from heavy impacts. Brunt stopped suddenly and looked behind them. Ron whispered, "What is it?" Brunt growled deeply. Marin understood instantly. "They're in the tunnels." As if confirming his words, a distant metallic clang echoed behind them, followed by the sound of claws scraping metal. Someone or something was crawling through the tunnel. Lyra felt fear run through her entire body. She looked at Marin. "We need to hurry." "We will," he said. "Stay close." The group reached a large circular hatch. The engineers began working on the lock immediately. Their hands shook from fear, so they forced themselves to breathe slowly to stay focused. Behind them, the sounds grew louder. Something was moving fast. Brunt stood facing the darkness behind them, his body low and ready to fight again. The hatch clicked open. Marin waved them inside. "Go, quickly." Lyra entered first, followed by Brunt. Ron and the engineers climbed through. Marin waited until everyone was inside before closing the hatch behind them. The loud clang of metal locking into place echoed like a final warning, but the scratching noises behind the hatch did not stop. They entered a massive chamber filled with pipes and reactor coils. The air was warm, glowing with faint blue energy swirling below the floor grates. Large fans hummed loudly, making the room shake slightly. "This is the lower reactor," Marin explained. "If we reroute the power, we can overload the tunnel behind us. It will collapse and slow them down." Ron stared at the machinery. "Can we control the blast?" "We hope," Marin said simply. The engineers began working on the control panel, pulling out wires and entering override codes. Sparks flew as they rerouted energy paths. Lyra walked to the side with Brunt. She knelt beside him, stroking his face. "Thank you for staying with me." Brunt leaned his head gently against her shoulder. His eyes softened for a moment. He had fought harder than any creature should, and yet he still stood ready to protect her. Ron watched them quietly. "Captain, how is it possible that this animal fights better than our soldiers?" Marin did not look away from the door behind them. "Some creatures carry something stronger than training. Sometimes it is simple loyalty, sometimes instinct, and sometimes something else." Ron frowned. "You think he's more than an animal?" Marin nodded slowly. "He is protecting her like she matters more than anything. That is not normal guard animal behavior." Lyra did not hear their conversation. She was whispering to Brunt, calming him, promising him they would escape together. Suddenly, the engineers backed away from the control panel. "Captain, the overload is ready." "How long?" Marin asked. 30 seconds after activation." Ron pointed at the hatch. "What if they break through before that?" As if answering his question, the hatch suddenly dented inward. The metal shook hard. Everyone jumped back. More dents followed, heavy blows. Something strong was trying to force its way in. Marin shouted, "Activate it." The engineers hit the switch. Lights flickered across the reactor chamber. Energy surged through the pipes, glowing brighter and brighter. A deep vibrating hum filled the room. The dents on the hatch grew larger. Then a sharp metal claw pierced through the door, glowing red at the tip. Lyra screamed. The Prime Hunter's voice echoed from the other side. "You cannot escape." Brunt stepped forward, ready to fight again, though his legs trembled. Ron grabbed a weapon and fired at the hatch. "Stay back." More claws pierced through the metal. The door began to tear open. The engineers shouted, 10 seconds. Marin raised his weapon. Everyone behind the reactor column. They ran for cover. Lyra hid behind a thick metal support, Brunt beside her. The reactor glow was almost blinding now. The Prime Hunter tore a hole large enough for its head to appear. Its red visor glowed brighter than ever. "Child located," it said. The last seconds ticked away. The reactor exploded. A massive burst of blue energy shot through the tunnel behind the hatch. The blast hit the Prime Hunter directly, sending a shockwave through the room. The hatch door blew outward, smoke filling the chamber. The Prime Hunter vanished behind the explosion. The entire room shook violently, pipes burst, sparks flew everywhere, the lights flickered, then stabilized. Ron coughed. "Is it over?" Marin stared at the destroyed hatch. "For now. But we need to keep moving. The Prime Hunter might survive that blast." Lyra held Brunt tighter. "Where do we go now?" Marin pointed toward a lift platform at the far end of the chamber. "There's only one place left. The command core. If we reach it, we can send a signal, one that might call help." Ron frowned. "And if the Vorn get there first?" Marin looked at Lyra, then Brunt. "Then we fight until we have nothing left." Brunt growled softly, ready again. The group headed toward the lift. The final battle was coming. The lift platform creaked as it rose toward the command core, carrying Lyra, Brunt, Captain Marin, Ron, and the last two engineers. The metal walls around them trembled from distant impacts. Smoke drifted upward through cracks in the structure, rising past them like dark ghosts. The outpost was failing. The Vorn had damaged too much, too fast. But the group stayed silent, each one focused on the final goal ahead. Lyra knelt beside Brunt. His breathing was slow and heavy. His fur was burned in several places, and his legs shook from exhaustion. She placed her small hands gently on his face. "Stay with me, Brunt, please." Brunt responded with a weak rumble, but his eyes still glowed with determination. He was tired, but he was not finished. Ron watched them quietly. He should be lying down, resting. Marin shook his head. If he lies down now, he may not get back up. He knows that. Then he looked at Brunt and added softly, "But he also refuses to stop while she's in danger." Before anyone could speak again, the lift jerked to a sudden stop. The lights flickered, then went dark, leaving only emergency red light glowing above them. Ron checked the controls. The system's been cut. Someone or something shut it down. Marin drew his blaster and listened. The silence was thick, heavy, wrong. "Be ready, we continue on foot." The emergency hatch above the lift opened with a loud mechanical click. Marin climbed up first. The group followed, stepping into a long, glowing hallway leading to the command core. The lights here were brighter, but everything felt too still, as if the outpost was holding its breath. Lyra walked beside Brunt. He moved slowly, but his eyes stayed forward, watching every shadow. They reached the large door of the command core. Marin approached the control panel and placed his hand on the scanner. The door slid open with a slow, heavy sound. Inside, the command core was a circular room filled with screens, blinking lights, and a large central console. But something was wrong. The room was empty. Marin stepped inside carefully. "Where is everyone? The command team should be here." A soft beeping came from the central console. Ron checked it. "The distress signal system is active but offline. We need to restart it manually." Marin nodded. "Do it. The Vorn are breaking through every level. We need help now." Lyra stood in the doorway, holding Brunt's back. For a small moment she felt hope. Maybe they finally had a chance. Maybe they would escape. Then the lights above flickered. Then they died. The room sank into darkness. A deep metallic voice echoed from somewhere behind them. "You survived longer than expected." The Prime Hunter stepped out from the shadows. Its armor damaged from the reactor blast, but still terrifying. Half of its mask was broken, showing glowing cables and a small hint of organic tissue underneath. Its red visor glowed like a burning line across its face. Lyra gasped and held Brunt tightly. Brunt struggled to stand taller, his body trembling, but he positioned himself in front of her anyway. Marin pointed his blaster at the Prime. "You survived the overload." The Prime Hunter tilted its head. "I was designed to complete my mission. Even death will not stop me." Ron aimed too. "You're not taking her." The Prime ignored him. "The child is the last key. Humanity carries something we require." Lyra's voice shook. "Why me?" "Because you were born different," the Prime answered. "Your DNA carries the memory of a forgotten power." Brunt roared, interrupting him, his body shaking with fury. The Prime stepped forward. "Creature, you are strong. But your strength is finished." The room exploded into motion. Marin fired first. Ron joined. Blue blasts struck the Prime's chest, pushing it back a little, but not enough. The Prime fired a red beam that shattered a console behind them. Brunt attacked. His roar echoed through the command core, louder and fiercer than ever before. He leapt at the Prime, his claws glowing faintly. He slammed into the Prime's chest with surprising strength. The Prime staggered. The soldiers fired again and again, trying to help Brunt break the armor. The Prime grabbed Brunt, lifting him from the floor. Brunt clawed wildly, but he was losing strength. Lyra screamed, "Brunt, no!" Her voice filled the room like a powerful spark. For a moment, even the Prime paused. Brunt's eyes glowed brighter, burning golden fire. He bit into the Prime's arm with a force he had never shown before. The Prime roared, dropping him. Marin shouted, "Ron, hit the exposed joint." Ron fired, striking the Prime's damaged plates. Sparks burst from the armor. The Prime stumbled backward. Brunt attacked again, pushing the Prime toward the central console. The metal floor shook as they struggled. Lyra watched with tears streaming down her face. "Brunt, please be careful." The Prime slammed Brunt into the console. Brunt fell, breathing hard, almost unable to stand. The Prime raised its arm to strike the final blow. Marin yelled, "Lyra, down." But something unexpected happened. Lyra stepped forward. Brunt struggled to rise, but she touched his head gently. "It's okay, you don't have to fight alone." The Prime turned toward her. "You have no power," it said.